And we're back. This is Cross Defense. I'm Pastor Tyrel Bramwell, admission counselor at Concordia Theological Seminary in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and the host of this show here on KFUO.org. It is a pleasure to be with you, to be looking at the historical method and asking the question, is the New Testament trustworthy? And offering the answer, yes, 1,000 times yes, it is. The bibliographical test that we just looked at in the first segment shows that the gap between the original composition, the autographs, the original writings, and the extant documents that we have, the manuscripts that are in our possession today, it is a very short gap. It is, in fact, negligible. And we could go into all kinds of details. If you want to know more about this, please let me know. Send me an email. Go to tyrelbramwell.com and use the contact form if you have never emailed me before. And we can get that conversation started. If you let me know you want to know more about this, we will certainly dive deeper. This is just scratching the surface, kind of giving you an example of how the bibliographical test works. We're going to do the same right now with the internal evidence test and then the external evidence test. So in the internal evidence test, we listen to the claims of the document itself, the document under question, the one we're looking at, the New Testament in this case. What does it say about itself? The text is given the chance to speak before we decide what it's saying. The authors themselves get to say what they're saying. Funny thing, we actually let the person writing say what he wants to say, and we hear it without any presupposition, giving the author the benefit of the doubt. Kind of funny, right? It isn't assumed to be fraudulent based on a critic's views, but only if it contradicts itself and expresses a known inaccuracy, a falsehood. Okay? So, like I said at the beginning of the second segment, this is how we treat all historical documents. We give them the benefit of the doubt. This is very Aristotelian, if you will. Aristotle says this. We should give the document the benefit of the doubt before we jump to a conclusion that it's false. We don't want to impose our ideas onto the text. We want to investigate the text. We don't want to be biased. We want to be objective and let the text tell us what it wants to tell us. If it contradicts itself, then we have a flag. Then there's something we can go with. If it expresses an inaccuracy that is known to be inaccurate, well, then we have something we can go with. But the internal evidence test starts with not assuming, but giving the benefit of the doubt in the investigation and letting the text speak for itself. So when the Pauline epistles say that they're written by the Apostle Paul, this is what we go with, unless we have reason not to. The New Testament as a whole claims over and over and over again to be the eyewitness testimony or testimony derived from reliable sources. So the student of the document starts there. That's what the New Testament says of itself, with the claims it's making, internal evidence. Now, nothing inside the New Testament, nothing causes reason not to treat it as it claims to be. It claims to be the eyewitness testimony of Jesus' apostles, and it never presents a reason for us to think otherwise. According to internal evidence, the New Testament is a trustworthy document. Next is the external evidence test. This is where we ask whether other historical materials agree or disagree with what our historic document under question says. So first we let the document speak for itself, and then we compare it to what other documents say about it. What we find when we compare the New Testament with other documents, archaeological findings, etc., external evidence, is that its primary claims are not denied, but actually confirmed. The New Testament, the Old Testament too, really didn't emerge out of a historical vacuum. It wasn't written in some corner of the world, untouched by the other cultures and other peoples. Extra biblical material does and will speak to the claims of Scripture. And this could be applied to any religious text. We're thinking about the New Testament today, but you can apply this to the Book of Mormon. Can you look at extra Mormon material that is not within the Book of Mormon, and confirm what the Book of Mormon says about itself? Or does it contradict what the Book of Mormon says? Right? This is about, you can do this with the Quran. You can do this with any religious text. In fact, we probably should. You probably should. As you weigh out all the different religions out there, coming to terms with what they teach and whether or not they are trustworthy, you can look at what they say of themselves, and you can look at what other texts say about them. And not even texts, but geography, archaeology, all the different evidences that we have. Does it support or does it reject what that religious text is saying of itself? Okay, Montgomery cites a great example of this. Papias, the bishop of Hierapolis, writing in AD 130, says this: John the Elder used to say, Mark, having been the interpreter of Peter, wrote down accurately all that Peter mentioned, whether sayings or doings of Christ, not, however, in order. Now, this is what a writer says in AD 130 about what John, the apostle, the evangelist, said about Mark, right? So now we have all these points of contact to verify whether what Scripture says is accurate. This is an external historic document that makes a claim about the New Testament, which then can be used to corroborate or discredit the claims of the Bible. Bishop Papias is obviously a Christian. He's a bishop who heard what John had to say about Mark. But the external evidence test isn't limited to historic documents that are kind to Christianity, to friendly documents. There are other writings by enemies of the church, the foes of the church, Roman and Jewish sources, other sources as well, that also corroborate the New Testament's claims. And one of my favorite examples of this is from the Jewish historian Josephus. Josephus lived from 37 AD to around 100 AD, and he wrote with the support of Roman patronage. So he's Jewish with Roman support. In fact, Josephus took the last name of his patrons, Flavius, I believe. Josephus Flavius. If I'm saying that wrong, you could correct me, but I think that's right. In his book, Antiquities of the Jews, he records this amazing statement. Here it is. Now, there was about this time Jesus, a wise man, if it be lawful to call him a man, for he was a doer of wonderful works, a teacher of such men as receive the truth with pleasure. He drew over to him both many of the Jews and many of the Gentiles. He was the Christ. And when Pilate, at the suggestion of the principal men among us, among the Jews, had condemned him to the cross, those that loved him at the first did not forsake him, for he appeared to them alive again the third day, as the divine prophets had foretold these and 10,000 other wonderful things concerning him. And the tribe of Christians, so named from him, are not extinct at this day. This historical document was written by a pro-Roman Jew in the days when the Christian church was still in its infancy. He was born in AD 37 and lived to 100 AD, I should say, somewhere around there, not to the age 100, but to the year 100. That's roughly the same era. It overlaps. He's kind of a contemporary with John, the evangelist, right? Their lives are going to overlap. He's overlapping with Christians who were alive when Jesus was crucified. I mean, Josephus was born 37. Jesus was crucified, 33? You guys making the connection? This guy was right there in the same era. And not being a Christian, being a historian, he records that Jesus was crucified under Pontius Pilate and raised on the third day, and that his followers did not forsake him, but actually many, many, many more were drawn to him, and they're not extinct to this day. As we know, Christianity went on to spread over the entire earth. It's still here today. This historical document was written by a pro-Roman Jew, not a pro-Christian, and yet his words corroborate what the New Testament says. Ha! History. It's great. See, we're not talking theology necessarily. We're not starting from a theological point. We're starting from a historical point. We're treating the New Testament, and we can do the same with the Old Testament. We're treating the text as a historical document, as it deserves to be treated, not irreverently, but actually lifting it up, as opposed to the way many anti-Christian critics treat it today, putting it down immediately so that their presuppositions can actually have the day. But that's not the way you do things. That's not how you do things according to the historical method. According to the external evidence test, the New Testament is a trustworthy document. External evidence, other documents support the claims that the internal evidence test confirmed, the claims that the document makes of itself. Isn't that awesome? Historical method. The bibliographical test, the internal evidence test, the external evidence test. These are tools that we can apply to the New Testament, to the Old Testament as well, before we even get to the point of theology, to belief. And we can answer the question, is what I'm reading trustworthy? It may seem fantastic, and that really is why many critics reject it, because of the miracles. And that's kind of what Montgomery's getting at with the whole point of his little booklet, is that there are critics, educated academics, scholarly type critics who reject the Bible because of the miracles within it, because it's fantastic, because it's hard to believe that someone could get up from the dead, that someone could be born of a virgin. It's hard to believe all these fantastic wonders that the Lord did. And so they reject it out of hand immediately, before they give it its due diligence, before they treat it like the historical document that it is, and investigate it honestly, without bias, but objectively, letting the text speak for itself, analyzing the history of how we received the text that we're now analyzing, and then also letting the culture and the history that the text emerged from and within speak to it as well. External evidence. Is the New Testament trustworthy? According to the same historical method that we use to validate every other historical document, the answer is a resounding, unequivocal yes. Yes. Today we introduced those 3 tests. There are other ways we can get at this as well. I hope this piqued your interest in a little bit of apologetics. According to each of these tests, you, my friends, have every reason to be comforted by the cross of Christ, to believe in the Jesus of the New Testament, what the apostles handed down to us. According to each of them, you have every reason to believe and be a Christian, to be baptized, to receive the Lord's Supper, to believe it is actually Christ's body and blood, that your baptism is a new birth, your new birth into Christ, to believe that you will live forever in paradise, the new heavens and the new earth with Christ, to believe all the miraculous signs that Jesus did, to believe in the empty tomb, to believe that you will have an empty tomb, that you will get up from the grave. You have every reason to believe these teachings of Scripture to be trustworthy. Not from a place of theological insight first, but from a place of historical observation, sense, reason. God gave us our minds, our ability to think for this very reason. You do not have to believe blindly, but apply your logic. Treat the text honestly, without presupposition or agenda, and let it tell you if it's trustworthy, and it will. It does. It did. The issue is not with the New Testament. Someone doesn't believe the New Testament to be trustworthy and therefore believe what it says inside to be accurate. The issue is with the critic. And the issue is not founded or rational. It's misplaced. All right, well, that's it for today. The cross, my friends, is your defense. Until next week, may the trustworthiness of Christ bring you peace and security. Christ be with you.
Cross Defense is a production of KFUO Radio. Find past episodes and support Cross Defense at kfuo.org.